So today I wanted to talk about something that keeps coming up as a theme, not just for me, but for a lot of people I've talked to as well in day-to-day life. And that's about kind of not just speaking our own truths, but more being able to speak our own truths. Do you ever feel in your life that you are in some way denied from speaking your own truth? That might look like a multitude of different things. You know, some cultures, like women literally cannot speak their own truth for fear of, violence or even worse. And then I think in like British, where I'm from, culture, there's still that element of not really being able to really speak your own truth. I think as women we find as we get older it becomes not necessarily more easier to, but we give less of a fuck really about the consequences, the repercussions, the possible dangers of speaking our own truth. And I think back to like when I was in my 20s and stuff, and times where I should have spoken out about things, and I didn't want to. I think you maybe at that stage of your life you're sort of more worried about what other people think, and trying to be nice to everybody and not wanting to come across as an absolute bitch. In those times you do ever occasionally slip up and say what you really think, then suddenly you're a bitch, you're a slag, you're all this, all the names are strewn out that you are apparently. So yeah, that's probably when we're younger we have these first sort of forays into really saying what we think, and then it's maybe a combination if it doesn't come out in the best of ways because we're still young and learning, and then the inevitable shitey backlash that we've got kind of puts us back in our cave, as it were, and we learn over time to just whether it's we get less abuse, less crap thrown at us if we don't speak out or don't say what we think, or whether it's just easier in the situations we're in life not to rock the boat, to just keep on keeping on. And that can work for a while, that can work for years. But eventually we often find ourselves at this point where it's not really working anymore, and it might even manifest as like physical illness in some cases, but we just have this kind of, it's almost like we have this knowing that we need to start really connecting with every part of ourselves and every bit of ourselves that needs to speak out, and things can start coming to the surface, even if we hadn't consciously thought of them. So yeah, sort of being quiet and keeping it in can work for a while, but eventually it sort of has to come out. And I think the more we try and stuff in what we really think and feel and don't share it, maybe, the more it can kind of explode out, like in a messy kind of way. So the balance to find is probably that between not stuffing down our own thoughts and feelings and not expressing how we feel, between that and kind of when it all comes out in like a tornado, when there's inevitably those times where we've not said anything for such a long time, and then eventually it all just comes out because we can't contain it anymore, and that's when it's really messy and emotionally charged, and that's when it can all sort of end up coming out and hurting people around us, which isn't maybe necessarily the intention that we have with it. So if we can find the balance between those 2 points, then we have that healthy balance of being able to express ourselves, being able to say, when things are a problem for us, or when we have certain needs that we need to be met, between that and just generally hurting people around us, and being too blunt. So for me, I found something that helps is if I look at kind of the feelings that are coming up first, and this is really hard, is like looking at the feelings that come up first before vocally it all comes out. it all gets spoken or shouted. So, you know, if you're feeling angry about something, then kind of sitting with that for a bit. Obviously, it helps if you know what you're angry about. Most of the time we do, to some extent, but there can also be things rippling under the surface. You know, there's all those times where we've just blown our top at what seems a significantly, not very significant little thing. And it's because stuff has been building up and up and up to that point. So you may have an idea of what's triggered you off, or you may not, but more than that, just sitting with the feeling, and if we can work out ways of expressing that feeling constructively so that we're not stuffing it in and we're not repressing it, but at the same time we're not like shooting it out like daggers at somebody else. So in the case of like anger, you might go and do some physical exercise, or go somewhere and shout. Scream into a pillow, I think, is one. But it's something that kind of gets that energy, as the emotion gets that energy moving and out of your system and expressing it, but not in a way that's like then kind of sharp and triggering to other people or hurtful to other people. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you've got any like tips for expressing yourself in a balanced way, anything that works for you, or maybe if you feel there are some ways or areas that you could maybe express yourself a little bit more, or are you feeling maybe at this time now particularly that it's all sort of coming up to the surface, because I feel it is for a lot of women at the moment, and we're really being kind of called to speak out even when it's difficult, and it can be messy, and it doesn't feel like the easiest thing to do, but we still are kind of having that real push and nudge to do it now. So if you are looking to connect with like-minded mums as well, then please join the Empowered Mothers Network journal. It's sent out fortnightly to inboxes. There's a link in the description below if you want to join us and sign up to that.